any user enrolled in the system can approve a memo, right? For example, when a procurement memo goes through the system and gets to the VC, if the VC should mail it to the director of finance, let's discuss. The system gives the director of finance the option to approve a memo instead of the VC approving it. That's the VC being the original recipient, right? Good. So let me quickly test that, right? Good. All right. So let's say procurement. Okay. So let's test procurement. Let me just put in a very brief message. So let me say testing procurement. Okay. So all right. So now for testing sake, right, let me just use anyone as a recipient, right? Anyone who is going to serve as a VC for now, for the testing purposes. So let me use Francesca. Okay, for the testing purposes. Okay, so let me use Francesca. So Francesca is going to serve as a VC. Okay, so Francisca is serving as a VC. Just ignore the name. So because of testing purposes, we created multiple accounts and named them finance director. So just ignore the name. So finance director, okay, is just serving as a VC for now. Okay, so for testing purposes, so we can add someone as a carbon copy. We can also send it through an office, okay, but then that's not really important now. So let me just send this. Okay, so let me just send this. All right, perfect. Now let me quickly route to Francisca's account. Okay, all right, so here is it. Now you can see from the notification dashboard or notification panel that approval is needed. Okay, all right, good. So this the approval request that's being needed, right? So we have to approve and unlock that procurement form. But then what the IT director made mention of was the fact that when, for example, the vice chancellor, okay, comments, let's discuss. Okay, let's discuss. Okay, and minute this form to the director of finance. Okay, so let me minute it to the director of finance. So for testing sake as well, let me use this as the director of finance. All right, so all right, perfect. All right, so now the director of finance has received it. So this is it. All right, perfect. So we can see here, let's discuss, right? So the director of finance will see that the vice chancellor has sent or has assigned a memo to him saying let's discuss before he will approve, right? So initially the director of finance could approve that particular memo, that's the procurement memo, but then we have fixed that, right? So it's strictly role based. So whoever is the actual recipient is the one who is going to approve that particular memo. So now let's go back to the vice chancellor's account. Okay, all right, so we can see that approval is still needed. So let me quickly approve. All right, so approve, then approve and unlock. Perfect. So now when we go back to the person, all right, so I can see a notification which is saying request approved. Okay, so request has been approved. So what the person who requested for the procurement form can now proceed and fill the form. All right, so that's the first thing, right? So that was the first concern the IT director raised. All right, so the second one was the fact that a memo cannot be sent to all people in a particular department, which is very, very the IT director has always been fixated on procurement. So we telling him that the system is very broad, he doesn't listen. The system is really, really broad, and he is always fixated on the department. So not testing other parts of the memo, right? Good. But then let me quickly demonstrate that. Now when we send a general memo, okay, when we send a general memo here, so testing general here, quick general. Now when we send a memo here, now we can see we have all recipients, right? And we also have selected recipients. That's not what the IT officer actually wants. He wants the fact that we can send a memo to a specific department which is already in the system. Now it's already in the system, but then since we've not tested it, he's saying it's not in the system. We have all HODs where memo can be sent to all HODs. We have deans where memos can be sent to all deans. We have all directors where memo can be sent to all directors in the institution. And even what a specific department. So when you click a specific department, you could see a drop down here where you would what we have a very collated list of what all departments within what the institution. So audit, SEMS, EBA, I mean, what have you, there are a lot, right? Good. So in fact, I made it in a way that we can even multi-select what departments, okay, where you would have to select or where you have to send a memo to what a particular what department. But then since we've not tested it, he's saying it's not in the system, but then he hasn't seen it. Yes, so to prove that it's working, let me just send it to audit. Okay, audit is having 4 members, so we can see the members here: 4, 22, 21, 22. These are all the members within the audit department, right? Good. So audit, let me send it to audit. In fact, we can send it to multiple departments, right, based on the kind of memo you are writing. But then for testing sake, let me quickly send it to audit, right? Good. So let me send memo. Alright, so we can see here that I'm sending what a testing general, and I've selected what one department. So let me send a memo. Perfect. So memo has been sent, and I've even received a mail. Good. So the memo has been sent to everyone within what the audit department. So everyone within the audit department is going to what receive what that particular memo. And you can even see here that we have 2 to the what audit department, from the sender and what the dates and the subject and all that, right? Good. So that's that. The third one is the fact that in the procurement form, where the VC should input the amount of items being purchased, has been assigned to what? To the registrar. For this, he made mention of the fact that we don't know the route or how forms are being accessed in the institution, and he's making it look as if it's our fault. But then no, the forms we had was a very a very curated list of forms, right? We had from what the institution. It's not like Meta Scholar sat down and we developed our form, or we sat down and wrote our form, right? The form we had was what we used in what in developing the system. Good. So but then anyway, that changes has been done, right? So now the procurement form has been changed. Okay, amendment has been made. So let me quickly go to the procurement form, right, and see what I'm talking about. So procurement form, this is also a procurement form. So let me, all right, so we agree to it. Good. So procurement form, it's a very long list, right? A very long list where you have to fill, but then that will come later. So in the procurement form, the VC should input the amount of item being purchased. That has been fixed. I believe tomorrow when we are presenting, that will be presented as well for everyone to see that it's actually in the system and it's actually working. Yes. So that's that. Well, he made mention of the fact that the procurement form could only be filled by the originator of the memo when the memo is approved. Well, that's also a new thing to me. I've not heard anything like that before, but then that has also been fixed. So let me quickly show you that. Good. So testing procurement. Good. So from here we can see that this was what the initial memo I sent, right? So that was what the VC actually approved. Okay, that was the first correction. So now we've added what a dedicated button here called what assign to procurement. Now when you click, right, a very neat and well developed what what's the name, drawer, right, pops up. Okay, so this drawer is going to what give a very fine list of what everyone within the what the procurement office. So for testing sake, we have 2 people within the procurement office. Now he also made mention that people should be able to fill what your form on your behalf. So hence I added what other users. So other users, if you select that particular person who you want the person to fill the forms on your behalf, you can do that. Okay, so let me select Metascholar. Okay, so let me assign and assign. Perfect. Now I have done that. So when I open the Metascholar account, okay, I can see that the form filling has been assigned to you by Bernard Chiu. So that's that. So now the form can be assigned to the procurement office for the procurement to fill, right? Good. So you can even see here that the forms was approved by the finance director. If you can really recall that it was the VC, okay, good, the VC approved it, but then because of testing stake, we were using an account called the finance director. Now, so you can see from here that you've been assigned to fill a form on behalf of Cheo Bernard. So Cheo Bernard is actually the requisitioner. All right, so that's that. So that's also working perfectly, of which we are going to demonstrate to you in details when the due time comes. Good. Now, the fifth correction is the fact that budget officer lacked permission to fill the portion of the finance form before forwarding to the director of the director of finance. Good. So let me quickly fill one of these forms so that we see what we are talking about. All right, so let me quickly fill this form. So this is the requisitioner section. It's a whole long list of form, like I said. So it's because of testing sake, let me just key in anything. Okay, so 50. So now a user can sign, which is working perfectly. Okay, sign and forward. Oh, okay, the phone field is required. Okay, so let me just key in everything here. Okay, I've done that. Let me re-sign. Okay, so perfect. Now that has been done, so it's in the office of the HOD. Now let me also quickly sign it for the HOD. It's optional. Good. So now here is it. Now it's moving towards to the the budget office. So all within the finance processing. So that's stage B. So stage B is going to the finance office, but then to the budget officer, right? Good. So we have to select a budget officer here. So we select the budget officer, we send it to the budget officer. Perfect. Now the budget officer receives it. Now what does the budget officer do? The budget officer would have to key in some few things: the expense code, the cost center code, the occurrence code. For whatever that is, I don't know, but then the budget officer needs to do that according to the IT director. So now the budget officer needs to confirm that everything entered is correct. So let me quickly enter these things. All right, so if there's any attachment, the budget officer can attach it. The budget officer can also sign. All right, perfect. Now you see that after the budget officer was signing and filling in those relevant code, the budget officer needs to now send it to the director of finance for confirmation, right? Good. So now that section has been split into two: the budget officer doing his part and the finance also doing his part. So that section has also been faced. All right, so clearly that section has also been faced. All right, so that's that. Well, good. So let me just quickly proceed with the form. Okay, let me just proceed with the form. Okay, so now it will move to the internal audit. So internal audit, the same idea came, right? He made mention that the internal audit, it needs to be verified first before the internal audit officer would sign, right? So we also split that into two. So the internal audit member would have to what's the name? They have to investigate or verify that whatever form is being filled is all the details are correct and all that. Okay, so good. So this is the verification stage for the internal audit. So you can what verify and forward to the head of director, or you verify and sign on behalf of the what internal what auditor. That's if the director of the internal auditor is not what is not around. Okay, good. So let's assume the director of auditor is what is around. So we verify. Let's verify. Oh, okay. So all right. It's the director. So internal audit. Okay, let me check. Okay, all right. All right. So so this is the stage for the director. Good. So the stage for the budget officer. So the budget officer needs to comment if there's any issue, but then clearly there's nothing wrong here, so nothing. So now if that is that, then the verification team needs to send it to what, to the director of what audit. Good. So let's send it to the director of audit. All right. So this has been sent to the director of audit. Good. So now the director of audit would have to do his part. Okay, so quickly the director of audit will also have to do his part. So the director of audit needs to make sure that whatever has been verified here is also true. Okay, and indeed true. So if there are any comments from the director, you just have to key it here. So no comments from director. Good. Director needs to sign. Can sign. Okay, good. Now it needs to move to what, to the office of the what, to the registrar. So there's we are assuming this account is a registrar, so it's moving to the office of what, to the registrar. Perfect. Now on the table of the registrar is supposed to do a very simple thing, right? Good. So initially the forms we had, right, the registrar would key in the comments approved by, then the value, right? That was the initial form we had. But then I thought of the fact that what if the vice chancellor is not around, right? Good. So if the vice chancellor is not around, then the registrar would proceed and do this, right, and fill this form. But then if the vice chancellor is around, the what's the name? The registrar needs to what, forward this to what, to the vice chancellor for final amendments, or final what's the name? Final verification, or whatever it's being called in the institution. So the registrar needs to take this. Good. So and give comments. So you would notice that immediately the registrar takes, the approved by and the approved value is gone. It's now being assigned to what, to the vice chancellor. So comments, if any, no comments. Vice chancellor will do that. So the vice chancellor will also sign. The registrar will sign. Now he's going to the office of the vice chancellor. Perfect. Now he's in the office of the vice chancellor. Now we can clearly see that it's now in the office of the what, of the vice chancellor. Perfect. Now you can clearly see that the vice chancellor now has to what, to key in the what, the final value, like the IT director said. The vice chancellor needs to key in the final value. The vice chancellor comments approved by who? The vice chancellor, right? So that's approved by the vice chancellor. Vice chancellor and approved value, whatever value, the vice chancellor needs to do that. So now all the privileges has been given to what, to the vice chancellor. So now it's not the registrar who is supposed to to do that. Unless the vice chancellor is not around, then the registrar would do that. Right, good. So that's that. So the vice chancellor needs to sign. Then I think that's that. Now after the vice chancellor signing, it now moves back to to the director of finance. So that's basically the flow. So we've solved every single comment made by the IT director. Now he also made mention of the fact that folders what's the name, any administrator can create a folder for each department or whatever his comment was. But then we've also faced that, so let me quickly demonstrate that. Right, good. So let me quickly create a folder, a new folder. So testing folder. Right, so testing folder. So if I share, right, with a department, you would realize that now I cannot share with any department at all. We can only share with the department of which that admin belongs to. So in my case, I only belongs to the audit. So I'm serving as as a administrator for audit. So hence I cannot only create a folder on behalf of audit. So but then I also added an improved feature, which is the fact that if I am even sharing with audit, I can only share with primary member of audit or secondary member of audit, right? Or all members of audit. And who are these primary, secondary, right? The primary members are the staff assigned to this department as they are primary departments. I mean, those who are within the department as they are primary departments, right? And the secondary departments are the fact that probably people are from IT directorates teaching within SEMS, right? So they are secondary. They don't really belong to the SEMS department. They are from other department, but then they are handling other courses in SEMS. So those are the secondary members. But then if you want all members as well, we can also share with all members. So that has also be handled. Right, then I think his last comment was the fact that he wants admins, right, administrator, I mean the system administrator, to create a folder on behalf of any department at all, right? So that has also been faced. So if I create a folder here, let's say testing folder, right, testing folder 2. Now since this account, right, it's an administrator, it's a system administrator account. If I share this folder, you would realize that if I share with a department, right, I can now select the department, right? You know that in the other account I could only send it to that specific department I belong. But then since he made a comment that the system administrator, right, should be able to create a folder for multiple departments, hence you can do that, right? You can select the department of whom you want to share this folder with, right, and share this folder to that particular department. So that has also been faced, right? Good. So I think that's that. All his comments were faced, and if that is that, then I'm done with this demonstration. Would also be on campus to give a detailed demonstration of how the system is, and also if we handle all the correction the IT director gave or not, right? Good. So we are going to see that in a very few probably tomorrow. Yes, so we are going to see that. Good. So that's that. Good. So everything here has been confirmed, and everything here has been is working perfectly. So currently there's no issue within the system, and everything, every flow, every logic is perfect here. So thank you very much.